Hi-ho, I'm Daniel Markham, and I wrote the domain model for domain modeling, and I'm here this week to talk about ethics yet again. I really don't want to do this. I can't put this any differently. I hate doing this. I find it unpleasant. I know a lot of programmers don't like talking about politics or ethics, morality. I think we have to talk about them, as I pointed out last week. And I did an essay last week on ethics and had a lot of really good commentary on it. And that led to the discussion around what really is an ethical question versus a moral question or a policy question. I think that's got to be the starting point. I think this is where we drop the ball, really, to be honest with you. So I find this unpleasant because I realize a lot of people will misunderstand what I'm saying and take it the wrong way. May the great pumpkin have mercy upon you, but I am not talking about what is moral, right or wrong. I am not talking about who the right president or prime minister is, what parties. No, I'm not talking about any of that stuff. Okay, I'm talking about as a professional, we have certain obligations to other professionals. So as much as I hate doing this, Bubs, we got to do it, right? This reminds me a lot of, they call it yak shaving. I feel like I sort of swept a little corner out of the garage. It was very messy, and now like the rest of the garage is like a mess. So I kind of stepped in this thing. I'm going to have to clean up some more of it here. It just has to be done. If I don't do it, it won't get done right. A long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, your humble servant here had an interview with a large tobacco manufacturer in North Carolina. I live close to North Carolina. It was a 2-hour drive, beautiful drive. They had this campus. It was just gorgeous. They'd taken this 500 or 1,000-acre farm and landscaped the entire thing. So there were ponds, and it was probably the most beautiful corporate campus I've ever seen. People were nice. The facilities were wonderful. Everybody was friendly. It was a great interview, and they wanted me, and I wanted to work in their environment. And I left, and I was conflicted. And I smoked for 5 years when I was a kid, and it was tough as dickens to quit. And on the way back, the 2-hour drive back to the house, I kept thinking, do I really want to work for a tobacco company or not, right? Is it that I think that smoking, is evil or good or evil? I think it's a wrong choice. I think it's a wrong choice, much the same as I think skydiving might be, or those little Batman things they fly right in. There's some choices that are probably very poor for you. So I think it's a wrong choice. It's not a choice I would make, but I don't think it's an immoral choice, right? There's nothing, I'm not, not angry at people who, I personally would not feel somehow that I had done the wrong thing by smoking. However, encouraging people to smoke, that's kind of a different thing. I would find that personally immoral. I would find, to me, this doesn't feel right inside to somehow encourage people to hurt themselves. And that was bugging me. And it wasn't bugging me that the tobacco companies are evil. It was bugging me that I might be put in situations as a programmer where I would have to write code that would persuade people to do things that would be against their best interest. The code would act in a way that I wouldn't be proud of. And when I got stuck in those situations, of course, I wouldn't do it, right? Because this is just not what I stand for. But the bigger problem would be, first, how to handle those situations. And second, why am I putting myself in a situation where I would have to have these conversations, right? Those are ethical questions, right? Whether the smoking's good or bad, that's, people differ on that. But putting yourself in a situation where you have to sort of have all these conflicts all the time, what to do when you have a conflict, those are ethical questions. And so that's what we're talking about last week and this week. I think ethics is almost like a sort of a social checksum. And so as you go along, you just kind of check to make sure the block's working okay and you don't have any CRC errors, and that may be too nerdy for you. But ethics are the sort of layer on top of the work you do to make sure that your work is still on track with where you want to go. I will give you a second example. And if you're going to stick your foot in it, you might as well stick your foot in it. Here's the one piece of advice I can give people online that I don't take myself enough, but I should. Shut the hell up. I probably should say it in a better way. We get very passionate about things. Oh my gosh, I love ice cream. There are things I'm passionate about, right? Um, and our passions come out, and we start typing in from our passions, and we've expressed ourselves. And I'm a writer. I love expressing myself. Um, but when I work in technology teams, so many times I see people have a conflict that may basically be an ethical conflict. Maybe like, how do we handle this uncomfortable situation the team is being faced with, right? Perhaps we're being asked to give an estimate we're not comfortable with or something like that. And this sort of neutral ethical discussion suddenly morphs into this sort of right or wrong discussion, who's the good guy, who's the bad guy. And it always happens when somebody starts typing on the email, okay? So one of the biggest pieces of advice I need, and probably other folks as well, is just don't type when you're upset, right? This sort of moves against most of social media because, let's face it, what we're living in now is a world where everybody's their own brand, and the more upset you are about things, the more you speak from your heart and the passion. Like I said, I love all that. But as a professional, I can't work with people if we're all sort of emoting at one another all the time. So I have to impose some of my own ethics to say, the more upset I am, probably the further I'm going to step back from the keyboard. Um, so there are other parts where ethics come in, like TDD, clean code. We have these professional values around coding if you're a clean code person. And those professional values may conflict with your customer values, right? How you handle that conflict, how you set it up, ethics, boom. So it's not a discussion over whether clean code or TDD is a good idea or not. It's not whether your customer is an asshole or not. All of these things may be true, but it is a discussion about how you handle conflicts between your internal values and everybody else. I'm going at this from what's called a tabula rasa approach, a clean table. And I'm doing this on purpose because I know that the minute I start talking ethics, there's been approximately 40 bazillion books written on ethics. It's oh my God. And God bless you if you're a philosophy guy out there, word up. But we have to start fresh for a lot of reasons. This is very similar to the situation where you have one team that does a domain model for an application and they've solved life in the universe. The next team comes in, and many times the first team will go, oh, sure, we've already figured everything out, right? And they just sort of dump the answer. Well, unless it's socialized, internalized, they really haven't done anything except to figure out their answer. And this gets into Wittgenstein and sort of socialization and meaning and a bunch of other stuff. But the point being, no matter how many words we've printed on ethics and how many really great books on ethics and documents, this has to be a personal thing. And so each of us, myself and you and I in our conversation, has to start from the beginning, right? We can't sort of drop into this and pull down a lot of prearranged ideas and plug them in. The reason I came back to do this, and the reason I feel like I should do it even though I don't want to, is because, hell, there's just nobody's talking about this. I got a ton of people talking about cool stuff I'm upset about, like, the surveillance state. I mean, I got a ton of stuff that I love, I have passion talking about. How to talk with somebody who's pressuring you to make an estimate you're not comfortable with. These work-related, how do I present myself as a programmer people can rely on? How do I present my profession so that people trust programmers? I don't think anybody's doing that. And worse to the point, I know right now there are tens of thousands of freaking programmers stuck with ethical problems, and we've done jack shit to prepare these people for these problems. And when they come online, nobody wants to talk about them because everybody wants to say, oh, no, that's a politics problem or whatever. They always want to stick it in, this is controversy. People will argue about it. And they're right. It is very difficult to talk about. But, if we can talk about distributed databases, I think we can talk about, how you handle working for a tobacco company, right? Many of us happen to be far too good at taking our feelings out of things. I'm also one of those dudes. But it's important. It's important that we're able to look at ourselves and our work and our profession from an external view. These things are always a struggle. I'm not here to give you moral instruction. I don't want to give you I'm the last person in the world you want moral instruction from. Did I mention I didn't want to do this? So this is not our what's right or wrong. I mean, there are a bunch of guys that'll tell you like what are the right and wrong things to do in the world. I am not one of them. I am one that will try to help you find your way based on your own values to someplace that you're comfortable with. So this is a struggle. If ethics aren't a struggle for you, you're not doing it right. I'll just be as simple as that. If you have all these ethics and they're never a problem for you, you don't need the ethics. Whatever you're doing, it's not an issue. Ethics only become valuable when it's a struggle. And so a lot of times as a management consultant or somebody who's helping out companies, I have to do a gut check walking in a lot of ways. Oh my God. And I'm not happy that I've always done a good job passing that gut check. A lot of times, I may have said things that were in my own best interest, or I may have sort of glossed over things I should have been more direct about. That's ethics. I mean, those are ethical questions. That's the freaking hard part of that stuff. So that's kind of where we are. The rest of the essay will go over sort of establishing, what. So I'll do some background stories on what ethics are, kind of give you examples in the real world. I talk about the qualities of ethics that are true no matter what your profession. Provide a format for actually creating your own ethics that I think is a good format. We're talking about discriminator functions. So to do discriminator functions, we have to have data structures. And I'm a nerd, so this is the way we're going, okay? So we have a format for creating ethical rules. And then finally, what did I do at the end? There's a checklist for is this an ethical conversation or not? So hopefully I've covered the whole how can I sort out things that we're talking about, whether they're ethical or not in this essay. And if I screwed it up, well, that's par for the course. You gotta try, which is also an ethical thing as far as I'm concerned. I am Daniel Markham, and I will see you on the internet.